All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome, welcome. I do have an announcement to make before we get started here. We are violating the fire code. So right off the bat, we're starting out great. So if you have the ability to squish together, maybe invite some people in. They don't want to have too many people standing in the back or sitting in the back. So if you're standing in the back, come on up. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of welcoming people here who will scoot over and welcome you to sit next to them. I would love it if, we don't get shut down by the cops. It always happens to me when I try to do stuff. I don't know, yeah, I guess. Oh, thanks. You guys are the best. All right, cool. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to Toby's Tips and Tricks 2020. And I just want to ask everyone if you knew that you can use trim as extend. This is a pretty cool little bit of functionality that's in the software. It's a great little trick that saves me a lot of time as I run through the software. So if we go in here to Solidworks and we start a new sketch, and we, let's say we'll do this on the front plane, and we create a line here that's maybe a little bit too long, and a line that's cutting through it like this, and then a line like this, and a line like this, we can go to the trim command. So this is trim, and we can use power trim, which is awesome. And we can just go and rip through that, no problem, trim through that. But we can also use power trim to grab this line and extend it up to this line here. Pretty cool, right? So you don't have to go into a different command, you can just do it right in there. You can also extend it to a line where it doesn't connect. So I could extend it over to here and then just hold my mouse over this line here. And wait, why doesn't it extend? What do you have to do? Anybody know? Just yell it out if you know. You have to click on it, right? You have to select it. And then it'll extend it to that line, and you can see that it creates a relationship here. Computer magnify. There we go. So there's the relationship that's coincident. Computer demagnify. So that's going to create a coincident relationship between this line and this line so that they're actually going to move together once you do that trim extend function. So you can actually use trim as an extend and a trim. You don't have to go into a different trim command. You can just do it right here. So click on that guy, extend it down to that guy, trim this guy off here, take this guy over to here. That can't be actual applause, can it? That's got to be in the recording. Yeah, let's wait and then we'll try to do better. You guys up for this? We got to all do it, okay. No, wait, no, it'll take too much time. So another thing that we can do with trim that's pretty cool is we can actually kind of backtrack. So let's say we're going to do a trim here. And we go, I didn't mean to get that last line, right? Well, if you just backtrack through this little red dot here, it'll let you kind of just take a step back. You don't have to hit escape and then undo and start all over again. So trim as an extend, pretty cool little trick that you can use in SolidWorks to save some time. If you're taking notes, this is what my notes would look like. I'll give you guys a chance to get your notes started. This is what mine would look like. So you can use power trim. It does work in regular trim. I don't really ever use regular trim. I don't know if you guys do, and if you do, that's fine. But it does work there as well. But usually I just do everything with power trim, and it can be extended to a virtual intersection, so how the line extends out. Come on in, guys, come on in. If you can find a seat in a chair, that would be awesome. I got the fire company yelling at me. Is that what they're called? Fire department. Sorry, they're yelling at me. So come on in, have a seat in a chair. Next tip here: edit sketch plane around the block. This is what I call edit sketch plane around the block. So what this is it's just a little thing that I run into sometimes where when you are trying to edit the sketch plane and bring it here to the right plane, what happens? What ends up happening? It always goes the wrong way. It knows which way you want to go, and then it goes the wrong way. That's the new machine learning that we were talking about yesterday in the general. So if we, let's just say we're going to erase all this, and we're going to create some new geometry here. I'll create a rectangle here that's 2 by 5, and then I'll just create another rectangle here that's 0.75 by 2, and then I'll do a trim here. And then we're going to leave that underdefined, right? No. So you can just right mouse button in the background and say fully defined sketch if you want to take a little shortcut. It's kind of a tricky way to do it. I know. Now we're going to go to the edit sketch plane command, right mouse button, edit sketch plane, and we're going to try and move this onto the right plane like what was shown in that earlier illustration, but what's going to end up happening? Right, it's going to go the wrong way. So I'm going to go to here, and it goes the wrong way. So how do we get around this? Just take it all the way around the block. Remember in the old days when you had the clicker that would go through the channels, and you'd get to like a high enough number where you just had to go around the horn? Or that's what he said in Toy Story. I've gone too far, I got to go around the horn. That's my favorite movie, by the way. So if I go here to edit sketch plane again, then I can go to the front plane again here, right, and bring it around, and then I can go edit sketch plane again. This isn't really a shortcut or anything. It's just kind of, this is what you do. Does anybody know if there's another way to do this? I don't know that there is. Anybody? All right, cool. We're going around the horn. We've gone too far. So edit sketch plane, sometimes you gotta just take it the long way, go around the block. Let's take a look at one more quick trick here. Repeat equals the last command. So this is like, there was an older program that used to do this too, right? You could just hit enter and that would like get you back into the last command again. This works in Solidworks too. You don't use it that often, but when you do use it, it's really helpful because you're usually doing things in bulk. So if I jump in here to Solidworks and I go to this guy here, and then we choose the full round fillet command. So I'm gonna go here to the fillet command and I'm gonna go full round fillet. I'm gonna pick this face, right mouse button, pick this face, right mouse button, pick this face, right mouse button. That finishes the command. And then I'm just gonna press enter, and that takes me into the full round fillet again. So this face, enter, this face, enter, this face, enter, right mouse button, full round fillet again, this face, right mouse button, this face, right mouse button, this face, right mouse button, hit enter to do it again. And then finally, I'll do this face, right mouse button, this face, right mouse button, and this face, right mouse button. So being able to hit enter to repeat the last command, it can be a nice time saver. It doesn't really sound like it's that exciting maybe, but it actually is when you're doing it. You're like, oh, I'm so smart. Oh, this is great. I'm saving so much time doing this. So enter to repeat the last command, another really cool thing that we can do. What do you guys think? Pretty cool? If these are the kinds of tips and tricks that you think will help you, then you came to the right place today, right? Welcome, everybody. Toby's Tips and Tricks 2020. We did do this presentation last year. We're going to talk about that in just a couple of minutes, but I want to say welcome to everybody. All users are welcome. If it's all right with you, I'd like to just take a quick picture of everybody while I got you still happy before we get to the end, and then you're like, why did I even come in here? So let me just take a quick picture. I'll do this selfie style so we can all see. So everybody say cheese, and we'll say, yeah, that's great. All right, awesome. Let me do one with the front one too, because I don't want to see my bald head in the bottom of that picture. That probably would be a cool like YouTube channel art. Who am I? My name is Toby Schnars. So hello, everybody. Everybody who's come here, has anybody done their certifications? Anybody do a certification while you're here this week? What'd you guys get? Just yell it out. What'd you get? Sheet metal? Everybody got sheet metal? Anybody get anything else? What's that? Weldments? Oh, CSWP. My man. I am also CSWP. That's awesome. So we are brothers in certification. I love the certification game, and if you don't know, it's a great opportunity to get certifications when you come to 3D Experience World. There's it's all day on Sunday, is that right? All day Sunday, you can go in, you can get certified, so it's a great opportunity. If you missed it this year, it's no problem. When you come back next year, just look up the information, you can get in there and start taking your exams. Robbie, how many exams did you take? Took 3. He took 3 certifications in one day. So, any opportunity you get to take certifications is great. I started out doing tech support a long time ago, so after I got CSWP, I went on to get my certified tech support, and after that, I was hooked. I just had to keep going. I had to keep doing this. So I got my CSWA and my CSWE so I could figure out what they were all about. Then I started getting my instructor certifications. I got a sales certification. I got my 3D Via Composer certification. Then I started banging out all the CSWP mold, CSWP sheet metal, CSWP weldments, CSWP FEA, CSWP surfacing, which is one of my favorites. And I even went through and got the sustainability exam. Anybody remember when that was? Yeah, it was awesome. It really held true to its name. Then I got my EPDM support certification. I got my simulation support certification. I went through and got my work group PDM certification. I got my plastic certification. I got my electrical certification. I got my draft site support certification, which I'm happy to say, over 16 years of doing tech support, I think I used 4 times. And I even got my simulation instructor certification, and it really continues through to this day. I mean, I'm even getting certifications as recently as the 3D Experience Platform Explorer certification, and getting my certification even just last month to re-up for tech support. So I love the certification game. I want you to know if you're attending a session for somebody who's doing tips and tricks that I'm somebody who has done a lot of training, a lot of support, and I really try to know what's going on in the world of SolidWorks. But that's not really why I do it. The main reason I do it is so whenever my boss sends me an email, like, hey, Toby, are you going to SolidWorks World? I can reply with this awesome signature file. Like I said, I've been doing tech support and training since 2001, and I also won Model Mania at SolidWorks World 2003 on the reseller track. And I think, again, it's important if you're coming to a tips and tricks session, it should be from somebody who can do things pretty quick, maybe somebody who won a modeling contest, which is something that I tell everyone in every conversation that I can. Hey, this guy won a modeling contest back in 2003. I hang out a little bit on social media and recently started a new channel called Too Tall Toby. So if you want to keep in touch with me, if you want to stay in the world of Toby, you can check me out. I'm on Reddit, Twitter, YouTube as Too Tall Toby. And I'm also going to try to post some of the videos from this session and from the session yesterday up on there as soon as I can. Anybody in my sheet metal class yesterday? Oh, and you guys came back. All right, awesome. Well, I won't repeat any of the tricks from yesterday. I'll give you all new stuff today. Now that you know a little bit about me, let me just hear a little bit about you. How many people, their first time at World? Awesome, welcome. What do you guys think so far? They're like, good, right? It's awesome. It's so fun. I love coming to World. I love meeting the other people. I love going to these different training sessions, picking up some tips and tricks. How many people in the room are intermediates? Maybe you've been using for like 3, 4, 5 years. Okay, awesome, great, welcome, welcome. I hope that you will also get some tips and tricks. And how many people are masters? Yes, awesome. Well, I definitely want to hear from you at the end and let me know if you were able to maybe learn a couple of things that you didn't know before. If you are a master, a lot of times when you come to the sessions, you're trying to learn little things like how does the presenter, use the shortcuts. I didn't know that's how you could get to that menu item. I know for me, I was in one of these sessions on simulation and I saw somebody do a cut extrude and right mouse button and do through wall for the end condition. And I was like, whoa, I never knew you could do that. It's been in there forever, but I didn't know. So a lot of times, as a master, you might not be coming to the session for the stated topic, but you're still going to get a lot out of it. But for this stated topic, goals, right? What are our goals for everyone in the class? What's my goals for you? We're all probably thinking the same thing, right? Goals. Right? What's our goal? Our goal is to just come away with a few tips and tricks. That's it. Really straightforward. Last year I gave a session like this. It was called Toby's Tips and Tricks 2019, and these were the topics that we covered. Oh, and these were the topics that we covered, and these were the topics that we covered. And if you watch the video of that, you'll see that we actually even got to these towards the end. The video is on YouTube on the Solidworks channel. 126,000 subscribers. Wonder how Too Tall Toby's doing these days. Looks like it's just me and my wife. No, I'm just kidding. It's me and my second ghost account. So this video is available up there on YouTube on Solidworks channel, Toby's Tips and Tricks 2019. And when I got to this last section, I was just tearing through the material. I was talking really fast. So that's pretty much where we're going to start out with today's session. We're going to start out kind of where we ended last time, talking through some of these concepts that I think are really important and things that I use a lot to save a lot of time. Does that sound good to everybody? All right, cool. Now listen, along the way, if you see something you like, if I show you a tip or a trick and you like it, feel free to clap. I realize that you're clapping for me and not the item. No, I'm just kidding. I know that you're clapping for the feature and the shortcut, and that's great, and I encourage you to do that. Similarly, if you have a question along the way, just shout it out or raise your hand and I'll call on you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have along the way. It's all friendly here, right? Day 2. Anybody go out drinking last night? Anybody go with their VAR and get some free food? Some free dinners? Good, good, awesome. The VARs are amazing. I love the VARs, and I love that they're taking care of the end users. All right, let's get into it. This is kind of the loose agenda. I can't wait for section 3. It's my favorite section. Here's some notes if you want to take any notes while we get started. I'm going to take a quick sip of my drink. I love taking notes. I take them all the time. All right, here we go. Whoops, wait, am I going backwards now? This is something that would often happen in tech support. A customer would call me and say, SolidWorks keeps crashing or it's really unstable. It was fine. It was fine for 6 months. It was fine for a year. Now all of a sudden, every time I do X, Y, and Z, it crashes. I say, let's try to rename your registry. Now, what does this exactly mean? Well, the registry is actually an area in Windows, not in Solidworks. And it's an area where a computer saves settings. And when you rename the registry, what happens is that all your settings are set back to default. It's, like I said, it's a section in Windows. It's a hierarchical database of low-level settings for Microsoft Windows operating systems that opt to use the registry. This just means that not all programs use the registry, but SolidWorks does. So this is where SolidWorks is going to store your settings. The registry is written to when the software closes successfully, which means that when you're working with SolidWorks and you make changes to your system options, or you change the way your icons are laid out or your background color, and then you close the software, the registry writes those settings. But what happens if it doesn't close successfully? What if there's an abnormal termination, right? What's that a fancy way of saying? A crash, right. What if there's a crash? Well, sometimes the registry can become corrupted. And then and so maybe there's a setting that is supposed to be either a 0 or a 1, but it becomes like a 12 or something. And then the next time your program tries to access that setting, the program doesn't know what to do, and so the program crashes. So it's really helpful to be able to get into the registry and set all of your settings back to their out-of-the-box settings. Now, I'm not going to go into exact detail on how to do this, but I am going to do it live. The reason I'm not going to go into exact detail is because this is something that can actually really mess up your computer. Not doing what I'm doing, but getting into the registry and tinkering around, like, what if I change this? What if I change this? What if I change this? My computer doesn't work. So I don't want anybody to go down that path. So I'm going to do it here, though, because I want you to see that this really will set me back to out-of-the-box settings. So what I did was I renamed the area where all the settings for SolidWorks are stored, and now I'm going to launch SolidWorks again. And if I stay in here in the registry, after SolidWorks launches, if I press F5, we're going to see that a new key for SolidWorks was created. Computer magnify. So you can see here a new key was created called SolidWorks. That's a new area where all my default settings are going to be stored. Now what's actually happening is that there's another section in the registry where the out-of-the-box settings are stored, and they're copied into this new section. Doesn't matter. The point is, when you rename your registry, you're tricking Windows into thinking that this is the first time that this user has launched this program. Windows looks in the registry and says, is there a folder called SolidWorks? No. This must be the first time this user is launching SolidWorks, which means you're getting the out-of-the-box or the vanilla settings for SolidWorks. So I'm now working completely fresh and out of the box. The reason I wanted to start here is because this, like I mentioned before, this is something that can really help when you're running into instability issues. It's also something that can really help when you're going from one major version to another. Has anybody ever been in a situation where you go from like SolidWorks 2018 to SolidWorks 2019, but 2019 is still pointing back to all your 2018 folders? Okay, a few people have run into that. This is something that I actually want to give a shout out to the SolidWorks team because it doesn't seem like it's happening anymore in 2020. I was going to show you guys a cool example, and I couldn't get it to happen anymore. But it is something that has happened in the past. Or if you get settings from someone else can copy their settings using Copy Settings Wizard. They could maybe be pointing to folders that you don't have, and that can be a problem. So being able to clear the registry is really helpful. Question?
What's the difference between doing that and resetting the system's options?
So the question was, what's the difference between doing that and going into SolidWorks and resetting all the system options? I believe that the system options will only reset what's in the system options area. It won't reset your toolbars and your layouts and your background colors and things like that. Well, background color is in system options, but it won't reset your toolbar layouts, things like that, which add-ins you have turned on, things like that. Yep, good question. So, like I said, be careful. There's lots of good videos on it. You can check out. You can search for me. You can find I've done a couple of videos on it talking about this, what happens when you go from one version to another, how to do the registry properly, how to kind of capture your settings so you're not starting from scratch. And this is where all your SolidWorks settings are stored. Question over here? You could try this. I mean, yeah, you could try this. The only reason I'm hesitating to answer is because in my experience, let's say I've got 4 versions of SolidWorks installed, which I have currently. I've always been totally fine launching the newest one first and working backwards. So step 1, I'll rename my registry. Step 2, I'll launch 2020 and then work my way backwards. And the new ones never look back at the old ones. If I do it in the opposite order, if I launch 2017 first and then launch 2018, it's looking at the 2017 settings. And then if I launch 19, it's looking at the 18 settings, or actually at the 17 settings. The thinking there is that when a customer goes from one version to another, they don't lose all their pointers to their folders. which is a good thing, can be a good thing. So it's a tips and tricks. It's, it could go either way, but it's a really good thing to know how to do and something that I do pretty regularly, especially when I start running into abnormalities in the software. If I'm working with sheet metal and I go file, make drawing from part, and SolidWorks crashes, and I do it again and SolidWorks crashes, it's almost certainly registry. I go in, rename the registry, bring it up again, the same part file, make drawing from part, it works fine. Right? I corrupted something in the registry that function is making a call for. Now, if you really get in there and start tinkering, I mean, this can get really nuanced. There's lots of really cool stuff you can do. I'm not going to get into it. I know Tom Smith is in the room, and he knows about a gajillion things about the registry, all the cool things he can do. These settings are super helpful. They can be copied. They can be shared. They can be, you can go through and you can really customize your registry so you can share it with your whole team and make sure that everybody's starting from the same point and pointing to the correct folders. There's all kinds of really cool stuff you can do. But just simply knowing that you can go in and rename it can save you a lot of time. Instead of spending hours troubleshooting something, it could just take a few minutes. I just did it here live, so the SolidWorks we're using is going to be out of the box. Great question. So the question was, what about the SolidWorks copy settings wizard, right? So the copy settings wizard generates a file called a .sldreg. If you right mouse button on the folder in the registry and you say save or export, it generates a .reg. The sldreg is basically the same thing. Not exactly, but pretty close enough. So that's what you're doing. You're exporting your registry key. You're just doing it through a wizard interface. Yep. It's great. Exactly, yeah. You're going back and taking that bad call that was calling to a 12, and you're turning it back into a 0 or a 1 by loading your registry settings in. Yep. Question? So I do have a YouTube video on this. If you search SolidWorks registry Toby, you'll find it, but it's not on that channel. I've worked for a couple of different VARs over the years, so I've spread myself out over the internet, right, over YouTube. I have a few different channels. But if you just search SolidWorks registry Toby, and if you want it on there, be sure to subscribe to Too Tall Toby, and then you can send me a message. Question back here. That's a great, so the question was, is there a point in time when you should rename the registry just to give yourself a fresh start? So that is a great question, and I think it kind of depends on how neurotic you are. Like, I actually do it every time there's a new release. Oh, should you delete the old one? It doesn't matter. Yeah. That's what The Rock always says, So that's kind of how I live my life, Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's something that if you leave them in there, they're never going to hurt you. Because when the software launches, it's looking for a key that's called exactly SolidWorks. So you may have noticed in my registry, I have like 10 different before SolidWorks World, before 2020, before this, before that. And it doesn't matter. Nope, I don't know how to spell. Thank you. So yeah, you see I have all these in here. You should just have this one, just this one right here, and I have all these. And probably even more than that. Okay, so it doesn't matter. A lot of times when I give a presentation, I want to be, working right out of the box. So now that I'm out of the box, I'm going to need to point to my templates for SolidWorks. So this is my next tip, which is you should come up with a good system to organize your templates and libraries. This is what my system looks like. I've got a folder called C00 Toby's library. It's really easy to point to. It's always in the C drive. It's always right at the top. And I can go in here and I can see I've got a different directory for each year release. And one of these subfolders is going to have one of these folders is going to have all these subfolders. This is what I do personally. There's different variations of this. Like you could have it on a company network. You could have it in PDM. It doesn't matter. The point is that you want to make sure that you've got your templates in a really easy to access location. And I encourage you to put your whole library in there. I mean, I've been in so many spots where I've needed to create a new custom material. So I go to create a new material, but the SolidWorks material library is read-only. So I just say, okay, make a new library. Where do you want to put it? I don't care. Just put it in the default location. And then I use that material all year, and then I get a new build of SolidWorks or a new computer, and then I'm like, oh, where's my old material? You know, I completely lost it. And it's the same thing with weldment profiles. It's the same thing with sheet formats. You know, just get in the habit of having one directory that you're always going back to. It's really, really handy. It really saves a lot of time. The other thing that's nice is that when we go in here and we start pointing to these templates, we're going to really have an easy time of doing it. So here in SolidWorks, I'm going to say that I want to, let's say I just want to start a new part just so that I'm looking at something. I'm going to go into, this is a brand new build of the registry, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my add-ins, and I'm going to turn off my add-ins. I usually just start out with everything off, and then I kind of turn on the ones that I want as time goes by. So I'm going to turn off everything in this column, and I'm going to hit OK, and then I'm going to close SolidWorks. And so what's that going to do when I close SolidWorks? It's going to save those settings to the registry. I don't know if anybody said that. I just heard like, blah, blah, blah. That's right. It's going to save those settings to the registry. So now that we're launching the second time, first of all, you notice how quick it launches because there's no add-ins loaded. So now that registry information has been written. So I choose new, but where are all my templates? They're all gone because I blitzed all those paths when I reset the registry. So now I'm going to go to my system options, and I'm going to go to file locations, and I'm going to say add, and where are my templates stored? Well, I know where they are because they're always in the same place. They're always here in 00 Toby's library, and I'm going to point to my 2020 templates. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my sheet formats, and I'm going to do the same thing. And the nice thing is that when I click add, I'm already in that same folder. I'm already in that 2020 library. So I just do sheet formats and the next and the next and the next. Now, in the newer versions of the software, there's actually this button here called Edit All, where you can write to these paths and save these paths. And that makes it even easier to share out and map to these paths. But the point is that it's really easy to point to all your libraries when you are working from one continuous folder. So I encourage everybody to do that. It's something that's nice and easy. And there's more libraries than just your document template to get your weldment profiles, materials, sheet metal gauge tables, all kinds of stuff you might store in there. And then the final thing that I do is I just take that and I put it on a thumb drive. I do that for backup purposes, but more importantly, I keep this in my laptop bag. So if I go to visit a customer or another SolidWorks user, it's very easy for me to just load up my templates, maybe even share them with them. And that way, anything that they create will have my name stamped all over it, and I'll get full credit for it. If we go to some kind of patent court. I don't know, I'm just thinking downstream. I'm going to skip this section for now. No, I'm not going to. All right. Because I didn't get to talk about this yesterday, right? You guys, when we were in sheet metal, did we talk about this? Old templates can be a problem? We didn't talk about this. Okay, all right, good. So old templates can be a problem, particularly for sheet metal users. Whenever you start a file, you can go to the properties of anything in the tree, and you can find out when that thing was created. So we can see here that this thing is the front plane, and the front plane was created when the template was created, and in this case, the front plane was created back in 2000. So you can go to any file and you can look for the properties of that file and find out when the template itself was created. Now, when old templates exist and they're before 2003, it's going to be good to create new templates. And so you're going to have that question of, how are SolidWorks templates made? Right? It's an important question. So SolidWorks templates don't actually ship with the software. There's code in the software that ships. And what that code's going to let you do is it's going to let you actually generate these new templates from scratch. The way that you do that process is you figure out where the templates are stored by default. It's usually C program data. You go in and you clear out that directory. You go back into SolidWorks, and you click File New. And when you click File New and there's nothing in this directory that you're pointing to, SolidWorks will say, there's nothing in this directory, there's no existing templates. Do you want to create new templates? And if you say yes, really what it's then going to ask is, well, what kind of units do you want to use in those new templates? Everybody's seen this dialog box before, right? We've all seen this dialog box, but maybe you didn't know what it was doing. It's actually creating brand new templates from code that ships with the software. So once you hit OK there, these 3 new templates are going to be created. And if you go to one of those templates and you examine the date created, it's going to be today's date. Now, the reason this is important is because if you're working with sheet metal in particular, there was a change to the architecture of multi-body sheet metal parts in 2013. The important date here is 2013. So if you go to any file and you choose File New and you look at a template, I'm going to choose No here to this. So if you go File New and then you look at a template, I'm going to go to this template here, and then you do a right mouse button and you go to Properties, and then you look at this date. If this date is before 2013, you should definitely consider creating new, fresh templates. And the reason why is because the architecture in sheet metal changed in 2013, and it actually changed in the underlying template architecture. I know that we had a whole class yesterday dedicated to sheet metal, so I don't want to spend too much more time on that right now. But just keep in mind that this isn't something that you necessarily have to do. It's not like if you open up an old file, it's automatically going to blow up. It's just certain functionality in the software that'll get a little bit wonky. And it's particularly around sheet metal. Like you'll go to make a drawing of a sheet metal file and you won't be able to show the bend lines or the bend notes. That's one that comes up sometimes. Or when you're working with multi-body, you get some abnormal behavior when you're looking at the multi-body flat patterns. A lot of times in tech support, we rooted that back to pre-2013 templates. Okay, I know that those first two were a little bit on the long side. Let's get into some shorter ones real quick. How's our time right now? I did have these time check slides in here, but I don't even know how to do the math. Let's do a quick one here. Search paths. Would you like to make the following changes to your search paths? You saw me select this option before. This is going to come up whenever you go in and you add templates or add things to your libraries. I always choose no on this. Why do I choose no on this? Because what this is pointing to is the search files and folders function up in SolidWorks, and I personally never use that. If you use that a lot, then you have a little bit more of a difficult decision, but it's up here in the upper right corner. You go in here and you can go search for files and models. How many people use this functionality? Gary uses it. Okay. All right, that's good. Probably, I'll say like 10%. 10% of the people use this. So for those of you who do use it, what you should know is that when you're adding to that question, when that question says, do you want to make the following changes, you're adding to the search directory and you're also adding to your Windows indexing path. So if it's something like a template, you probably aren't going to search for that up there. If it's something like a library of parts, like if you're pointing to a design library, yeah, then I would probably say yes, because then you can easily go up there and search for files and folders and search through your design library. But for me, I'm probably going to say no here. Cool? All right. Give you guys a second if you want to write that down. And when I say write it down, I mean take a picture of it. That's what I think everybody's doing. All right, here we go. Let's keep going. Let's get some good stuff going. New section. Yeah! I got really excited when I made this slide. I was like, blood red. Yes, new section. 2 sketching topics. These might seem like they're pretty straightforward, but they're going to be the foundation for some other things we're going to talk about. So click and drag versus click, let go, move. 2 different camps, right? Who does click and drag when they create sketch geometry? Okay, a few people. Who does click, let go, move, click again? Okay, few people, great. And who chose not to answer? Nice. That's my people. All right, cool. So there's 2 ways to create lines, arcs, circles, rectangles, etc. Both of these work the same except for lines, splines. Maybe there's some others, but mainly it's just lines and splines. So these 2 ways of doing this are, you can take the line command and you can single click and drag and move over and then let go. So I'm holding the button down this whole time and then I can let go. Or you can click, move your mouse, click again, move your mouse, click again, move your mouse, click again, move your mouse. Okay, there's 2 different ways of doing this. This is, I think a lot of people who use SolidWorks know this. I think this is pretty much a beginner tip, but I think it's good to know that the main one that's different with is lines. And although it's maybe a little bit of a fringe case, the spot where I use that knowledge to my advantage a lot is when I'm in a situation where I want to quickly center something like a hole. So let's say, for example, I go into a boss extrude command here, and I want to create a hole that is centered along this face here, horizontally. So I'm going to create a circle here, I'm going to add some dimensions, and then I'm going to come in with a center line command. Well, if I do the click, move, click again, and pick up this midpoint here, I'm still in the line command, right? So now I have to hit escape, and then click that line again, and then I can make it vertical. But if I do the click and drag command, the line is still selected, but I'm not in the actual command, so I can do click and drag, come up to this point here, and then I can come over and just make it vertical. It's a fringe case, I know, but it's actually one that I use a lot. Like when I'm centering rectangles on an edge, when I'm centering circles on an edge, it's something that you can definitely use to your advantage if you know that there's a difference between the click and drag and the click, click, click method with a line. Pretty straightforward. I know a lot of you guys know this, but yeah, there's the fringe case. I don't think anybody needs to see this as a note. Well, if you want to, you can take a picture. I'll try to post this video by lunch. Line arc line, auto arc from line transition. How many people know about this one? It's pretty much like beginner's essentials, right? But if you don't know about this, I'm glad that you're here because this is what's going to change your life. So we can go in here to the sketch command when we're working in SolidWorks, and we can begin the line command. And now I'm going to use the click-click method, so click, click, and then I'm going to move away from that arc, and then I'm going to come back to that end point of that line, and then I'm going to come away from that end point. So I didn't click anything. I'm in the line command here, and I'm going to come back and touch the end point with my mouse and then move away. I'm not clicking anything, and that is the line arc line transition. This is one that we use a lot in SolidWorks. How many people say you would use this all the time? Look at all these hands. So if you didn't know about this tip, this is one that you should definitely take note of, the line arc line transition. So the question was, what about the A key? You can transition between them. And that is a great point, but I actually never use the A key, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. It's because of auto dimensions. So it's a great point, but I even put it in the slide. The A key works. It's hotkey to the A key, but it won't work if you're using the auto dimensions functionality. It also, you can also go off in any of the 4 or 8 directions of tangency. So what I mean by that is if you're in this line command, come across and you want to create this tangent arc, you can go tangent, normal tangent, positive or negative, but you could also go to the perpendicular. So if you want to do a revolve of a sphere or something like that, or you could even go to the reverse tangency. And that's going to work best if you use the click, click, click method, not the click and drag. It works with click and drag too, but it's just, when you're creating a chain of entities, it's better to do click, 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 in my opinion. Question? Yeah, great question. So the question was, once you're in that arc section, is there any way to get back to the line command? And this is where I really appreciate the comment about being able to press the A key. So what you can do is you can come back and you can touch this endpoint. Now you're in the arc command by accident, and then you just press A, and it takes you back to the line command. A will toggle you between these two. But the one that you're going to want to know about and remember is you can also right mouse button and then switch to arc, right mouse button, switch back to line. And why that's important is because of auto dimensions. So let's talk about auto dimensions now. Auto dimensions in sketches are found by going into system options, going to sketch, and then checking these 2 options. System options, sketch, and then these 2 options. I'm going to have another slide here that kind of zooms in on that stuff. So system options, sketch, these 2 options, and you want them both to be checked on. Enable on-screen numeric input and create dimension only when a value is entered. Now, the reason these are so important, and the reason that we started out by talking about click, click, click is because you're going to need to use the click, click, click method to do this, really. So I'm going to go here to options. I'm going to go to sketch somewhere. And I'm going to go to enable on-screen numeric input and create dimension only when value is entered. So this one and this one. And what this is going to give me is it's going to give me the ability to begin a sketch, orient my view, click the line command, single click, move my mouse away, and then let go of the mouse. And I come over into the 10 key area and I type in what I want that length to be. So now I move up, 1. Now I'm going to move at an angle here, 4. Now I'm going to come back down and close this thing off. Pretty cool? Anybody not know about that? Is this a new tip for anybody? All right, good, awesome. Oh man, the cumulative time that we're going to save together. This is awesome. This will also work with things like circles where it's super helpful. Rectangles, with a rectangle what you do is single click, move your mouse away, let go, and then you can type in the values that you want. So I'm going to say I want this to be 2 by 5. Now I'm going to jump into an extrude command. I'll extrude that out to say 1 inch high. Now I'm going to go to this face, begin a sketch, and I'm going to sketch a circle. I'm going to single click and move my mouse and let go, and I'm going to say I want that to be a 1/2 inch. Pretty nice, right? Anytime you go to create a circle for a cut extrude, you can just right away define the diameter of that circle. Really nice time saver. When you do this with a rectangle in a spot where you can pick up a coincident relationship, so if I pick here and I move my mouse up like this, you see how the 1 is currently highlighted? If I press the tab key, I can jump to the other number. I can type in that number, and if it's already on that upper edge when I press enter, SolidWorks will automatically create the coincident relationship there. So you see it picked up the coincident on that upper edge. So if you just needed to cut a notch into that block, you can do that. So you use tab to toggle between those two. This also works with the line arc line transition, but it's really tricky. It takes a lot of practice to get good at using it. So let's say I make this 1 inch, and now I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna come back over this point and I'm gonna come away. You'll notice that I'm now in the arc command by accident. And now if I press A to jump back to the line command, it just puts an A there. Hold on a second, computer magnify. So you see here, if I press the A here, it just puts the A in that value. It doesn't work for me. But what I can do is I can put what I want that radius to be. And then I can still move the mouse here, but it'll keep it at that radius, and then it'll actually give me that radius as a driving dimension. Pretty cool, right? So you're gonna see me use this a lot as we go through the rest of the presentation. I'm so glad that I was able to turn that option on. Auto dimension and sketching, really, really helpful. This is what the workflow looks like if you wanna take a picture of it. You use the click, move, click method. You're gonna begin a line or a circle, click a start point, move in the desired direction, let go of your mouse, enter the desired value on your 10 key, and then press enter. Or number pad, as you guys call it out here. Good? All right, let's move on. That's a pretty cool one. What do you guys think about that one? Is that one powerful? Yeah, all right, awesome. Yeah, let's get some clapping going. We gotta wake up, right? It's day 2. Classic colors, this is just a personal preference. Classic colors, all right, who's in the classic colors camp? Who likes the classic colors? All right, who likes the new blue colors? Okay, who likes dark theme? Yeah, all right, cool. No, it's not really an option here, but we do have dark theme, right? All right, so classic colors, just a personal preference. I do believe there's an argument to be made to say that it's functionally superior. I think it just makes me sleep good at night. But if you go to colors here and you say colors, icon color, you make that the classic color, you'll be prompted to also make this light or medium light, medium or medium light. So now we're in the classic colors, everything is yellow. You can see the difference here on this slide. The reason I might say that I consider it functionally superior is because you can tell right away what's a surface in the tree. You can tell right away what's a split line, what's a sketch in the tree, right? I think it's more difficult to figure out different categories or types of features when everything's blue and white, right? I like it when surfacing stuff is orange. I like it when sheet metal stuff is orange. So, just personal opinion. Cool? Colors, system options, colors, and then it's there in icon color under classic, and then you'll be prompted to also change the other one to medium light. Anybody been using the software since 2015 or earlier? Wow, awesome. Well, this will get you back to those colors. So for Toby, that's a yes. System options, colors at the top. Shaded sketch contours. When you have an open sketch profile, it looks like this. When you have a closed sketch profile, it looks like this. There's some other benefits too. It's an option that's in sketch mode. It's gonna be there when you start, using the software. It's a preference thing. I actually kind of turn it off. I don't know. Who else turns it off? Doug, I see you nodding your head. Most of the time I turn it off because there's just so many spots where I want to do a window select or a crossing select for a sketch relationship. So let's say you have something like this and you want to create a tangency relationship between them. I might just do a little crossing here. Oh boy, we're going to talk about that one in just a second. I might just do a little crossing here and then make that tangent. Or if I have 2 circles, I might do a little quick crossing here and make those 2 circles equal. But if I've got shaded contours, I can't do that because when you've got a shaded contour, it behaves kind of like a hyper block where when I go to click this and drag it, it moves it all around. So I can't just do a quick window select and make 2 things perpendicular or anything like that. So it is nice that it tells you when it's closed, but for me, I turn it off. Cool? Shaded sketch contour is something that was added in, I think, 2016. I realized halfway through the sentence I didn't know. I just abandoned. Instant 3D. Instant 3D is where you get this behavior. This is on the features toolbar. So if we go to the features toolbar, we can go to this instant 3D functionality. So let me show you what this looks like. Instant 3D it's got a couple of different functions. One of the functions is you can grab a grip of a dimension. This is the grip of the dimension here. And you can drag that grip of the dimension, and the geometry will update as you push and pull that grip of the dimension. You can also click on a dimension and type in a new value, and it rebuilds without you having to actually click on the rebuild command. So Instant 3D is here on your features toolbar. It gives you that functionality. And if your geometry is not fully constrained, it'll let you push-pull it by just dragging a face. So let's say, for example, I've got a hole going down through here, and I click on this hole. I can grab this arrow and resize the hole. Oh, I have a diameter on that hole. Let's get rid of that. Here we go. It's twice it's gotten me. We're going to talk about this in just a minute. So we're going to resize that hole by grabbing that arrow and moving it to resize it. And you can also see that if I grab the bottom of this feature, I can drag this up and actually turn these into bosses using Instant 3D. Okay, but I guess you could say it's a downside. Everything gets really busy when you click on it. I click on it, all these dimensions show up. There's been so many times where I just wanted to go and move a dimension, but I accidentally clicked on it, and then I couldn't move it. Or especially with planes, if you've got planes in your models, because it's Instant 3D, you have this kind of like dynamic capability. So if I had a new plane here, I'll click on the plane, and then its dimension will show up, and then I'll accidentally grab the dimension and move it, and I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to move the dimension around. So there's a lot of spots where I have felt like it's been a little bit cumbersome. So for Toby, that one's going to be off. Anybody else run into this? Yeah, Instant 3D? Okay. I think a lot of these tips maybe are just things that you didn't know were options. Maybe you just thought that's how the software works. So hopefully by being able to turn these off, it'll help you run through the software a little more. Instant 2D? No. That's it. No. No Instant 2D, okay? So Instant 2D is on out of the box in the newer versions of the software. It's on your sketching toolbar. And it gives you this behavior where you single click on a dimension and it does this. How many people love this functionality? 1, 2, 3 people love it. Okay, cool. So it does this. So then what you do is you need to get rid of that dimension, so you press delete. Right? And then you press enter, and then it says, please enter a number greater than, and it happens over and over again. You just can't get out of it, and so then this happens. All right. So Instant 2D, no. I mean, I get it. I get that it exists. I get why it exists. It exists because Instant 3D lets you do this. And somebody was like, hey, that would be cool if we could do that in Instant 2D as well. So here I am in Instant 2D, and I can't even click on the dimension because it puts me to that, but I can click like here, near the dimension, and then I can grab this grip and I can move it. Oh, that's cool. I can resize a driving dimension that should just be locked down and not be able to. Instant 2D is right here. You can turn it off just by turning off this option. So you can't override the drag? Okay.
Just a quick question, Toby. I don't know if it ever happened, but okay, you click it and you make it move back and forth. Wouldn't it be nice if they could put 1/8 or 1/4 inch increment and you move it and it would just incrementally move?
Yeah, that's a great. So the question is, how much controlled? How much control do we have over the ruler, and what can we do to refine that and maybe even incorporate inch increments into it? I mean, we could experiment with it, maybe get in there and adjust your settings for fractions and round to nearest. But this slider is based on how far out you're zoomed. So you're going to see different increments depending on how far out you're zoomed, and then you'll be able to snap to those increments. It's also based on where you are on the ruler. So like if you're out here, it doesn't snap, but if you're on these little notches, it does snap. So there is some snapping you can do when you see those rulers. Yep, great question. All right, cool. So those are some tips and tricks on how to maybe get up and get started. Let's move on now and talk about some cool shortcuts that we can use in the software to help save you some time. So first of all, the mouse shortcuts. Left click is select. I think everybody knows that. Control and left click is drag. Control and left click and drag is copy. And left mouse button drag is window or crossing. So I think most people knew about the first one and the last one, but that middle one maybe you didn't know about. You can do things like this. You can control drag a feature by grabbing a face and dragging it. If you have a fillet in your model, so let's say I have a fillet here, and for some reason I wanted to split it up and have a different fillet somewhere else, I can control drag down to this edge, and now I've got the fillet down there as a separate feature. So you can control drag features, just by doing that. I could take this and drag it onto this edge, and then I could, I guess the advantage here would be that then you could make this a different value, make that 1.25, something like that. You can also do that same thing when you're in sketch mode. So anytime you're in a sketch, you can hold control and drag. This is the one that I use a lot. Hold control and drag here when you're in sketch mode to make a copy of geometry. Window select and drag to make a copy of geometry. So that's one that I think, hopefully you'll get a lot of usage out of the ability to control drag within sketch mode. Okay, here's some other cool mouse shortcuts. Right mouse button gives you a menu, and right mouse button and drag gives you mouse gestures. As some of you know, if you've been in my sessions before, I don't use mouse gestures too much, so I don't want to speak on them too much, but it is good to know that they exist. It's pretty helpful when you're in sketch mode to be able to jump into a shortcut menu here. So I'm just holding down the right mouse button and dragging, and that takes me into these commands. There's some other CAD programs that use this a lot. So if you're coming from one of those CAD programs, you'll be right at home setting up your mouse gestures. There are some nice options for mouse gestures when you go into customize. So you can actually set them up to be 4 gestures, 8 gestures, 12 gestures. So lots of different options here for mouse gestures. When you're in assembly, when you're in regular SolidWorks, middle mouse button drag rotates. Control and middle mouse button pans. A lot of times people ask about this. They don't know that you can pan in SolidWorks. And shift and middle mouse button gives you what I like to call a smooth zoom. So if you're working here in this model, you can see I can rotate. I can hold control and drag, and that's going to pan. And then if I hold shift and drag, that gives me a smooth zoom. So if I want to get this to be in just the right spot, doing control drag to pan, shift drag to zoom, or shift middle mouse button drag, it can get me to like just the right zoom that I want. It's kind of cool. I've used that one a lot, the shift drag, because sometimes the rolling the wheel is a little too chunky. It's too large of an increment. You just want to really dial it in. Yes, question. Oh yeah, that's a good one. So, Alt and drag for the barrel roll. Yep. Like change where you're rotating about. Yeah, I mean, there is that rotate about screen also in view modify. So you've got this view modify, rotate about scene floor. Maybe you could use that to your advantage. Set the scene floor to something that you want. Yeah. Spaceball, yep, that's good too, yep. There's also pre-select the edge and rotate about the edge axis. So you could do, it also works with faces. So you middle mouse click on something and it'll become your kind of, I don't know what you would call it, like your axis of revolution, I guess. Turn it off? I don't think so. Turn this off, you're saying? I don't know. Yeah, I guess don't click that, yeah. I guess feedback. Yeah, no, I know when models are really busy, if you're trying to, I get the question. I've been in that spot where a model's super busy and you just want to do a normal rotate, but you accidentally middle mouse click on the edge. But I mean, you know what you could do? You could press F5, which is your selection filter. So when you press F5, it brings up all these menus, and then you could selection filter edges out of the picture, so you wouldn't be able to pick edges. So you could do F5 and then do like a selection filter all, and then take edges off, and then you wouldn't be able to accidentally. See, I can't highlight the edges anymore. I can only highlight the faces. Maybe you could do that. Good? Yeah? No? Good? He loves it. I can see him over there. He's like, yes! Yes, that's what I wanted. All right, another one that's good to know about here is when you're in an assembly, you can left drag to move parts, right drag, or control and left drag is going to copy parts, just like we showed earlier, and then right mouse button drag is going to rotate parts. And then this is just kind of like a little magic button. If you do shift and left click, a lot of times it'll let you pick things you couldn't pick otherwise. I don't have a better way of explaining it than that, but just shift and left click is a magic button. I've had it happen all the time in drawings. I can't pick an edge in a drawing, and then I shift click on it, and then I can pick it. I don't know why. It's like I said, it's a magic button. That's why it gets that special hat there. So in SolidWorks, what this is going to look like is, if we go here to our, let's go to one of these files. I'm going to open up this assembly. I'm going to use this shortcut here to filter my assembly to only show me the top level assembly. This is a brand new setup, so I'm getting asked all these questions that I normally dismiss. This is a guitar pedal, small stone, right? Small tube. Anybody have this pedal? Yes, oh man, I have it also. All right, so with this, I can hold control and drag and make a copy of this part. So hold control and drag, make a copy. So if you've got a group of parts that you want to use in another spot, you could pick that group of parts and then just do control drag to copy them. So take this guy and this guy. You can also, if you multi-select those parts, or window select those parts, you can do a copy and all the mates will come with it also. So if I did something like this, and I do a control C, and then I come over here and do a control V, the mates that are between those two parts are retained. Not this one, this is the foot. The mates between these two parts here, between the nut and the input jack, are retained. It's kind of cool, something that I talked about last year. You can also right mouse button and drag to rotate. And then, like I said, shift is kind of the magic button. So by default, if a model is set to transparent, so you can see here I can go to change transparency. By default, I'm going to be able to click through that model, and you can see here I can pick the face of the PC board. But if I hold shift, then I'm going to pick what's in the foreground. It's really helpful when you're working in SolidWorks assemblies and your models go transparent. You can hold shift to get what's in the foreground, or you can just click through to get what's in the background. Question? Yep. Yeah, so the way that you stop that is what we talked about earlier, which is when you have, so the question is when you have a part that's got very long aspect ratio and you go to rotate it, a lot of times things just like fly off the screen like that. So the two tricks that I use are, number one, you want to make sure that you recognize this command is zoom previous. It takes you back to what your previous zoom was, so at least you don't have to start all the way over. And then number two is if you first middle mouse click on that endpoint or edge or vertex or whatever, if you have something, then you can just rotate about that. That's all you can really do. Yep, great question. All right, cool. So moving on here, moving on here, you can see here that a couple other quick shortcuts that we've got are the ability to right mouse button and learn how to leverage those right mouse button menus. So this is where we can really get into a lot of time savers. We're kind of ramping up now to get into the power moves and combos section of this presentation. So when you do a right mouse button, you're going to see these different menus show up. And if you can take your time and learn what those menus mean, you can save so much time. So I'll give you a couple of quick examples here. And you actually saw one earlier in the form of the full round fillet command. This is an example that is going to be in the sketch command. So I'm going to go new. I'm going to go this part here. I'm going to go front plane, begin to sketch, orient my view, and I'm going to sketch a center line right up the middle here. Do I still have a filter on? Center line right up the middle here. Whoa. I'm in like no solve mode for sketch or something. You guys seeing this? Look at this. I'm getting nothing. Yeah. I think I must have gone into, let's see here, tools, sketch settings. Yeah, it was almost like I went into no solve mode. Okay, there we go. Isn't it funny that they have a mode called no solve mode? Like, it'd be great to turn on your coworker's computer and not tell them. So I'm going to make this line 3 inches here, and I'm going to say this is going to be for construction, and then I'm going to create a rectangle here, and then I'm going to create a circle here. So now when we go into the mirror entities command, we've got these 2 boxes over here, and if I zoom in on this and I pick this first line, you can see that my mouse changes to tell me that if I right mouse button, it's going to advance me to the next box. See how the mouse is changing there? So what that means is when I'm ready to jump to the next selection over on the left, I can right mouse button, and SolidWorks automatically jumps to that next box. And then I'm going to come over and I'm going to pick this line here, and I'm going to right mouse button. And now the right mouse button is a green check mark. That means that SolidWorks is going to finish the command. It's the same as doing a right mouse button to finish the command. So when I do that right mouse button again, you see I finished up that mirror command. So another example of that we looked at earlier was that rib example. When we were first getting started, we have this part here that has these ribs on it, and these ribs are going to require a full round fillet. I go to the regular fillet command, I choose full round fillet, I pick this first face, and my mouse changes to say, do you want to advance to the next box? Right? So that's saying I'm going to go from this box over here down into this box, and then I'm going to hit it again and come down into this box, and I'm going to hit it again, and that's going to be the same as hitting the right mouse button here. Or, I'm sorry, hitting the green check mark here. So I pick this first face, right mouse button, pick the second face, right mouse button, pick this third face, right mouse button, and the command is finished. And that is such a huge time saver that you can learn how to leverage in SolidWorks. I mean, another example of that is just with copy parts. So here, this assembly looks like garbage, so I'm going to put it back to what it was. File, reload. So discard what's in RAM and reload from the fixed disk, and that's going to put me back, puts Humpty Dumpty back together again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these screws, and I'm going to say I want to use this same screw in a couple of different locations. So I'm going to right mouse button on this screw, and I'm going to say copy with mates. So the way that copy with mates works is SolidWorks is going to ask me what were the existing mates. Oh, sorry, hold on. I got this PC board sticking out the bottom. That's because of a change that I made. So SolidWorks is going to say, what are the existing mates on this screw? Right mouse button on the screw, copy with mates. What are the existing mates on this screw? There's 2 existing mates, one concentric and one coincident. So if I come up here and I pick this face to be my concentric, the software is going to automatically advance. And then if I pick this face to be coincident, the software now says, do you want to go on and do another one of these copy with mates? So I right mouse button, and now the boxes are empty again. I can say, this is concentric, this is coincident, right mouse button. I can go on to this one, this is concentric, this is coincident, right mouse button, and I can flip around to the underside here, and I can say, this is concentric, this is coincident, right mouse button. Cool? Thank you. Thank you. So learning how to leverage these right mouse button menus is awesome. It can really save you a ton of time. I mean, even, we're going to get into some of these combos here in just a second, but just really look out for them. I encourage everybody to look out for them. It can also give you the access to your up to next, or what's called your end conditions when you're doing things like boss extrudes and cut extrudes, and we're going to see that in just a moment. But really learn how to leverage those right mouse button menus. You're going to save yourself so much time. So let's talk about these end conditions now. The first one is blind, up to 0.5 inches. I'm going to begin the boss extrude. I'm going to press 0.5. I'm going to press enter, enter, and we're going to finish that command. I'm going to throw a little bit of draft on there, and then I'm going to do another boss extrude. I'm going to single click on a vertex, and then I'm going to right mouse button. That's going to end that command. Or I'm going to double click on a surface. I'm going to right mouse button. That's going to end that command. And then I'm going to do a cut extrude, and I'm going to make that cut extrude go through all in both directions, and I'm going to do that by going into the right mouse button menus. So let's take a look at how this is done. We're going to go new part. We're going to make this a part in inches. We're going to go top plane, begin to sketch, orient to view, begin the line command, come over with the line command here, 5 inches, come up. I don't know, let's mix it up. Let's say 2 inches. Go across here, say 4 inches, come up like this, 1 inch, come over here so that we're vertical to the original, and then come down here like so. Actually, I want this to be a little bit smaller. S key, oh, no, I'll just go to features extrude for now. I'll talk about S key in a minute. Extrude. Now what do? I don't touch anything. I type in 0.5, enter, enter. And that's going to finish out that command. Okay, so now I'm going to start another, I'm going to do a quick draft just so I've got an angle here, because otherwise it won't, you won't see the difference. So now I'm going to do select a plane, begin to sketch, orient my view. I'm going to sketch a circle here. I'll make that circle 1 inch. I'm just going to fully define that real quick by doing right mouse button, fully define sketch. And then I'm going to go features, extrude. I'm going to single click on a vertex. And the end condition over here is going to change to up to vertex. And then my mouse is going to change so that if I right mouse button, it's the same as hitting a green check mark. And I'm going to finish the command. So I go extrude, single click this point, right mouse button, and that gave me an end condition of up to vertex. If I edit this feature here, you'll see it. It automatically changed this to up to vertex. We can do the same thing by double clicking on a face. So I just did a Control Z there, one of my favorite shortcuts, Control Z. I'm going to do extrude, and I'm going to double click on a face. And you'll see over here the end condition changed to up to surface. So you don't have to go through and like bounce back and forth, bounce back and forth, bounce back and forth. You just go extrude, double click, right mouse button, move on to the next feature. Right? I'm going to pick this face here. I'm going to begin a sketch. I'm going to sketch a center line that goes from this point to this point. I'm going to create a circle on that center line by picking up the midpoint, and I'm going to say I want that to be 0.5. I'm going to go to features, extrude, cut extrude. I'm going to do a right mouse button in the background to bring up my end conditions, like blind, mid-plane. I'm going to do through all both, and then I'm going to right mouse button again to finish the command. So these time savers, it's going to save you so much time when you're going through the software. It's so good to learn to look out for those right mouse button menus, look out for those shortcuts that are in there. They're all throughout the software, and they're just these little buried gems just underneath the surface. Question? Yeah, so this question is going back to the copy with mates command. It's a great question. So yeah, what happens is they get stacked in that case. The question was, when you have multiple components stacked on top of one another, how does copy with mates works? If you consider the screw and the washer as an internal system with mates between them, it'll always keep those mates between them and it won't ask you anything about them. It'll just carry it right with. So yes, absolutely it works. That's the short answer. It definitely works. All right, so that's another really great shortcut to learn about is the ability to extrude, look for your end conditions, right mouse button. So the first one is blind, type in the number, enter, enter. Really good one to know about. Second one is when you're going up to vertex, you just begin the extrude command, click on a vertex, and immediately right mouse button. Done. It's always going to be up to vertex. Third one is up to a surface, you double click on a surface, you right mouse button, that finishes that command. And the last one is if you've got any other end conditions you want, like mid-plane, through all, both directions, even just through all, you can just right mouse button and pick it from the menu, and then right mouse button right away again. Cool? You guys like that one? All right, cool. Out of the box shortcuts, this is another great topic to know about. When you go into customize, there's a section that says print list, and if you do that print list and you ship it to a PDF, you'll have a list of all the out of the box shortcuts in PDF. You can print it out, keep it next to your desk, do whatever you want with it, make a mouse pad out of it, all kinds of fun stuff that you can do with it. So when you're in SolidWorks here, if you just go to this flyout menu and choose Customize, when you're in Customize, you can go to Keyboard, and you can say, show me all the commands with keyboard shortcuts assigned. So I went to Customize, went to Keyboard, all commands with keyboard shortcuts assigned, and then you say Print List, and then you just ship that off to a PDF, and it'll show you the whole thing with all the icons in color, and you'll have your list. Here's my favorite out-of-the-box shortcuts. Any more? No, that's it. That's it. So Escape, Control-Z, R, Control-Q, Control-1 through 7, Control-8, F2, and Control-S. These are ones that I use. When I made this list, I just looked down at the keyboard, and I was like, yeah, these are the ones I use. I remember. I put my hand there and saw where my hand naturally went to. Okay, and I think you don't need any primers on this, right? These are all pretty straightforward. I mean, maybe R, maybe you guys don't know about R. R is show me all my recently used documents. So it brings up everything that you've recently accessed. So if you go home on Friday and come back on Monday, you don't have to go digging around your computer to find the file. You just press R. Question? I don't know. I haven't seen that. Registry, maybe. Yeah, that's how it should be. It should be just click on it and it fires up that file. This thing? Yeah, I haven't seen that. I mean, I don't think that's expected behavior. That's my thought. But I'd have to beat it up to find out for sure. Yep. Question?
You can also left click on it, drag it, and then drop it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite. That's definitely one of my favorite. I talked about it last year, so I didn't want to bring it up again this year, but you're right. It's one of my favorites. You can go from that R command into an assembly. So when you have an assembly open, so here's a scenario that I'm sure we've all been in. I'm going to make a new part for this pedal. I'm going to make a cover for this pedal. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to create some geometry. I think that looks great. There's my cover. And then I'm going to save that, and I'll call that pedal cover. I don't know where I'm saving it. And then I'll close this, and then I'm like, oh, wait, I wanted to use that in this assembly. So now what? Now we have to go to Insert Component and browse for that part? No, we just press R, grab that cover, and drag it in. Pretty cool, right? How many people knew about that? Yeah, good? Okay, yeah, awesome. All right, cool. Yeah, now that is one that I covered last year, so if you want to see more great tips like that, check out that Toby's tips and tricks from last year. All right, let's keep going here. Let's talk about, let's see, the rest of these are pretty good. All right. So now let's talk about customizing the S key. This is the one I've been waiting for. This is my favorite command in SolidWorks. Okay, the S key is Toby's favorite thing in SolidWorks. If you ever ask me what's your favorite thing about SolidWorks, that's what I would say. People ask me that, they're like, where do you work? Oh, I work for SolidWorks. Oh, what do you like about it? The S key. It's my favorite thing. The S key is the enhancement of the century, in my opinion. I think it came out in 2003. It's 4 toolbars that all work from one key. If you haven't worked with this before, there's lots of videos online that you can watch to learn about the S key. But if this is your first time being exposed to it, it's no problem. I'll give you the quick primer here. Depending on which mode you're in, you're going to get a different menu by just pressing one key on your keyboard, and that key is S. So when I'm in assembly mode and I press S, I have commands like insert component. When I'm in drawing view or drawing mode, I'm going to have commands like create section view, right? Depending what mode you're in, you're going to get different commands. And where you're really going to be able to leverage this is in sketch and part mode. So this is what my sketch bar looks like. When I'm creating a custom S key sketch bar, this is what it looks like. So what I do here is I get rid of the flyout menu commands for line and rectangle, and I replace them with explicit commands for rectangle, line, rectangle, and then I add boss extrude and cut extrude to that S key menu. Now, depending what you do, like if you do a lot of sheet metal, you might add base flange tab to your S key menu. But the point is that this gives you access to your most frequently used commands with just a click. So here I go to the top plane, begin a sketch, orient my view, and I press the S key, and then I right mouse button and I say customize. And once I get into customize, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say get rid of this menu. This menu, by the way, it used to have just line and center line. Now it's got line, center line, and midpoint line. But that's what that flyout menu does. And the other one has all the rectangle commands on it. So I'm going to go S key, right mouse button, customize. Let me just zoom in here a little bit. And then I'm going to say get rid of this guy and get rid of this guy. And I'm going to add in the explicit sketch command for line and the explicit sketch command for rectangle and for, oh, I put it in the wrong spot, and for center rectangle and for center line. And then I like to resize this a little bit, just personal preference. And then I go to the feature commands and I add the feature command for boss extrude and for cut extrude. So what this means is when I'm in sketch mode and I press S, this menu is going to show up wherever my cursor is. When I'm in feature mode and I press S, this menu is going to show up wherever my cursor is. So if I'm doing a project where I'm doing a lot of surfacing, I'll add surfacing commands here. If I'm doing a project where I'm doing a lot of sheet metal, I'll add sheet metal commands here, right? And you just leave it on there for that project, and then when you're done, you just drag those commands off. It's no problem. So now that I've got those commands on there, let's create a model. So I'm going to go here. I'm in top plane, begin a sketch, orient my view. I press the S key, center point rectangle, single click the origin, move away, 2.5 by 6 inches, S key, extrude. That's going to come up to a height of 0.75 inches, enter, enter. I'm going to go to the S key, and I'm going to jump into the fillet command. I'm going to say that I want there to be a fillet on this edge here, and I want that fillet to be at a radius of, you see how the radius is already highlighted? I'll say 0.5. So there's my radius command. I can maybe go around and pick a second radius here. Right mouse button just immediately finishes that command. So I didn't have to go up and hit the check mark. I just did a right mouse button. Here I'm going to say begin a sketch, orient my view. I'm going to go S key, and I'm going to create a circle here. I'm going to say I want that circle to be 1.25 inches. S key, extrude cut, right mouse button, through all. Right mouse button. Here I'm going to go to this face here. I'm going to begin a sketch. I'm going to say I want to make a circle here. I'll make this circle at 0.5. And I'll say S key, extrude cut, single click this vertex, right mouse button, finish that command. So this is all fully defined geometry. It's all matching the design intent that the customer gave me. And it's all using the shortcuts that we went through today. I know that the session might have started a little bit slow, kind of like, what is he talking about? Why is he telling me about click, click, click? I already know about that. But it's important because it's all foundational to learning some of these really nice time-saving shortcuts. What do you guys think? You think you guys are going to use some of these shortcuts? Good stuff? All right, awesome. Awesome. So that's just those. I actually kind of jumped into some of those power moves and combos. We are kind of running down to the end, so I just at this point I guess want to open it up, ask you guys if anybody has any questions for me. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. There is one more power shortcut I want to show you before we get into questions, but we're going to get into questions in just a second here, and that is the fillet shortcut, which I almost showed by accident there a second ago. This fillet shortcut is really cool, and what it is it's another one of these pop-ups that you want to look for. So, for example, if I go to the S key here in part mode, I get a menu that's specific to part mode. If I click fillet, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to type in the value first. The value is already highlighted, so I type it in first. Then I'm going to single click on this edge, and I'm going to move up and to the right. And whatever gets highlighted in purple is going to become selected for the fillet command. So I'm going to single click, pick all those edges, right mouse button, finish that command. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to do S key, make a rectangle here in the middle. I'll make this 1.25 by 3 inches. S key, extrude cut. I'll bring that down to a depth of 0.5 inches. That's a really handy one. I already know the depth. I don't have to move over and pick things. I just type it in right away. S key, fillet. I'll make this fillet at 0.125. And I'm going to single click on this edge. Oops, sorry. Single click on this edge. And then I'm going to move up and to the right, and I'm going to single click here. See, which do I want? Whatever shows up in purple is what I'm going to get. So I'm going to single click here, and then I'm going to right click, and that's going to finish that fillet command. I don't know what year that was added, but it was a long time ago. Like, what's that? 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, or 20. Yeah. It was whenever Fillet Expert came in, yeah. So that's another really good one to know about that's going to definitely save you a lot of time. And the way that this works is you single click an edge, you move up and to the right, and you get that. Hey, you guys that are leaving, I know you guys got to go. Don't forget to fill out the survey, all right? Thanks for coming in. All right, so with that, I'm gonna just kind of open it up to questions. I do want to just remind you, like I reminded those guys, there is a survey. If I could ask everybody, if you get a chance, go into your app and fill out that survey. I'm not dismissing yet, but I know some of you may have to leave, but we still have just a few minutes together, so we're not dismissing. But if you do have to leave, make sure you take a minute and fill out that survey, please. I really appreciate the feedback. But with that, I just want to open it up to final questions from you. Is there anything that's bugging you? What's on your mind? How's everything going? Question in the back there. Yes. So the question was, if your goal is to do a full round fillet and you've got multiple faces with a radius in the middle, can you get all those faces in one shot? And the answer is yes. So if we go here to a part like this, I think I could probably do this whole thing in one shot, but I'm going to just do it. I'm going to lop off some of this, okay? So we'll do an extrude cut here. I could have done that a lot more elegantly. And then we're going to go to the full round fillet command. And maybe these faces have draft and they, whatever, it doesn't matter. So you could do like front, and then you could do this, and then you could do this. I know that this is all one face here, but yeah, it'll work. I've done it before. And it could even have varying wall thickness, so like if it drafts down, as long as they're tangent, you'll be fine. No, sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying. Yeah, it all has to be, yep. So the question was, will the 3 ribs, can you do all 3 ribs in one feature? No, you got to do them as 3 separate. Question? Yep. So the question was, if you have a decal on this part and you want to send it to somebody else and you want the decal to go with the part, the answer to that one is you go in here to Document Properties, Model Display, and there's an option here for it. It's a great question. It's one that I've run into many times, and so I've tried to make it a habit to start doing that. But the option says Store Appearance Decal and Scene Data in the model, and that way when you save that file and you send it off to somebody else, you don't have to also remember to send them the decal file. It's not ticked on by default, but the way that the settings work in Solidworks is that these settings are in the registry, these settings are in your template. So this is a setting that'll be in your template. So if you just go into your template and tick that on, then it'll be on by default. Yep. Question? So you're saying if the model's too big and you get that flyout menu, what happens? Oh, if the pop-up window goes away, how do you get it back? That's a good question. I think there may be a shortcut for it. I think that's a really good question. So I don't know it off the top. Does anybody know what it is? Control brings it back. So if I go here to fillet and I single click this edge, and then this menu comes up, and then I move away, and then it goes away, can we bring it back? So you have to go back kind of near where it was before, and then press Control, and it'll come back sometimes. But yeah, I've had this happen too. Usually what I do is I just unselect the edge and then select it again. But yeah, I've seen that too, where like you can move away and then it goes away and then you like come back and press control, but you can see it's not happening here, yeah. Question? So the question is, we talked earlier about how if you have old templates, it can sometimes be problematic in fringe cases. What's the policy with older part files, legacy part files that your coworkers keep copying over and over and over again and just want to keep using? My opinion is, if it is not broken, just keep going with it. You know, if it ain't broken, don't fix it, that kind of thing. You have to look and see if you're going to fall into this category where you are starting to experience these abnormalities. But to be proactive, I would definitely make sure that everybody's working from new templates when they're making new parts. Okay, I'll take one more question, Matt.
So with Solidworks 2019, and then the feature tree, if you go to rename a feature, usually get like double left click on it on Windows.
Yep.
And it seems like now I got double left click and like move my mouse over past where the text was, and I know that happened. I didn't know that.
So the question was, essentially strategies for renaming features. So they're definitely at the top of the tree. If you right mouse button and you turn on these dynamic highlight references, it makes it harder to rename things. I've definitely seen that. Like I'll go to rename, and then that'll show up again, and it'll like kick me out of the rename function. It is better in 2020, but the two things I would say would be, one, maybe turn these off, and then two, just remember you can always use F2 to rename. Okay? All right, great. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of our time together. I want to say thank you all so much for coming in. I hope you enjoyed Toby's tips and tricks. I hope you got a lot out of it. Thank you. And please enjoy the rest of your SolidWorks world. And if you have a moment, please take a moment and fill out the survey. Any feedback you can give, we really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.